Last week, a Milwaukee County judge was arrested on federal charges for allegedly helping an illegal immigrant escape federal authorities. That's led to widespread conversation, uproar throughout Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and the country. Joining me today is John Stife, the Center Square, Wisconsin reporter. And John, tell me the latest on this issue.
Well, she's been suspended. She's getting paid. That's kind of a question that people have, is why she's getting paid. She was suspended by the Wisconsin Supreme Court, and she has a court date coming up in early May, which probably not anything will happen at that court date, but that's the initial court date for the pretrial.
So initially, before her arrest, I guess news started to flow Friday morning, and the FBI director actually sent a tweet and deleted the tweet. Is that right?
Yes, he sent something out before she was even formally charged, and then at about 10:20 a.m. she was charged in court. She was in court for about 5 minutes, and then she was released.
So I guess throughout this week, can you give me a sense of what the feel has been, supporters of the federal action or the federal immigration policy and detractors?
So there was a protest over the weekend, and on Friday there were a lot of statements that came out from Democratic lawmakers that said, hey, this was an inappropriate arrest. It could have been handled a different way. This week, the Assembly Republicans came out and said, hey, the governor has issued a statement to state employees through the Department of Administration that said, don't talk to anyone who comes in from ICE into your work, and instead consult a lawyer and talk to our general counsel. Don't help them at all. The Assembly Republicans are like, well, you should definitely help them, and they're there for law enforcement reasons. And I think that applies a little bit to this, because this occurred ICE was trying to make the arrest in the lobby of the courthouse. And as the chief judge has said about that space, that's a public space. It's not like they were doing it in the courtroom. They weren't trying to do it in private in the back channels of the courthouse. They were trying to do it in the lobby outside of it. They were asked to wait to make the arrest until after the pretrial hearing. And then the judge didn't do the pretrial hearing and tried to help escort the defendant in that case out of the area with the lobby outside of the courtroom and down an elevator.
I think there are two, maybe three key issues that have gone on this week that are kind of getting overlooked, but thankfully you've written on them. One is this sense that the chief judge said, listen, these are public spaces. This is allowable in a public space. The other issue that ties into that is allegedly she had asked them to wait and make it after the hearing and then didn't do the hearing. I think by any stretch that's a concern. The other thing that I think is that is critically important in this, that has been very much overlooked, except for the story that published on the Center Square yesterday by you, is this letter from the governor that told taxpayer-funded employees not to cooperate with the federal government. I have a hard time getting around that, whether you like a policy or not like a policy. Rules are rules, laws are law. I feel like that's, and John, you can help me out on that, but I feel like that's kind of what Assembly Republicans are getting at with this letter.
Right. And they went a little further than that in the press conference they had early in the week. But the letter essentially says, hey, the law enforcement is here to enforce the immigration law. And this was someone who was previously deported and then is being charged with violence against two people in his home after coming back to the U.S. after previously being deported. And they're kind of pointing to that and saying, this isn't a case where this person even gets a hearing. They're just deported again because of the circumstances of the case. And this judge either didn't know that or did know that and still tried to assist the person in leaving the courthouse. And to be clear, he was arrested out on the street in front of the courthouse. They chased him down and they arrested him. That nothing ended up happening because of this, but she tried to, and she was visibly upset, as it said in the complaint, that they were waiting outside the courthouse for him, or outside of the courtroom.
It brings it's a small example of this kind of overall issue that's been, I guess, surrounding the country for several years now. A law's a law, rules are rules. You can not like some of them and you can love some of them, but the rule of law is the rule of law, and it's critical to follow that. We don't get to pick and choose what we want to do.
Part of the issue with the Milwaukee courthouse is that a couple times previously, these arrests have occurred there, and there's been kind of an uproar about it. And there have been statements made about, okay, what's the policy here? And should people be concerned if they're going in as a witness, if they're going into the courthouse for a pretrial hearing, all these different things. But what was made clear in the complaint here is they're not going after witnesses. They're not going after anyone else. They're prioritizing people who are accused of violent crimes, who are on their list, who have been previously deported, who are higher level of offense. And they're saying that the concern about people randomly going to the courthouse and the federal government going after all sorts of random people at that courthouse, or witnesses, or people that aren't there in front of the court based on an offense that they are accused of, those people are not subject to this, and they shouldn't be concerned about going into that courthouse.
Well, John, I appreciate you joining us today. This is certainly something that will not go away soon in Wisconsin and likely across the country. Thanks so much.